Okay, I hope I'm audible to all students who are attending this lecture of Development Economics Part 1. We intend to start with the reading Economic Development by Debraj in this particular lecture. Debraj would be the main book I would prefer to follow for my lectures on development economics. Okay, and in this particular lecture, we look at the concept of economic development. This is chapter 2 of Debraj. Okay, so first of all, let us see what we are going to study in our lectures on economic development. Okay, so when we talk about economic development, what are the questions we are going to ask ourselves? So again, I hope all students are sitting with their readings. You should open up chapter 2 of Debraj Ray, and whatever I make you mark, you mark in your readings, and let's understand this. So what characteristics do we use to evaluate the degree of development a country has undergone, or how developed or underdeveloped a country is at any given point of time? So this is a very famous question in development economics, which we ask ourselves. How do we measure development? How can I say that a particular country comes under the category of developed or underdeveloped? In short, we need to see how we can measure development. Can we only use per capita income or GDP to measure development? Should we also use social indicators like life expectancy, child mortality, literacy rates, education? What should be the combination of per capita GDP along with social indicators? So this is what we are going to learn in this particular chapter. How we can measure development or the degree of development per se. And on what parameters can I classify the countries into developed or underdeveloped? So this lecture is going to be very introductory. We are going to start in full form in the coming lectures, but you should be motivated as to what you are going to learn from this particular lecture, from the set of these lectures. Okay, so so all of you can come to this particular the next page and you can mark point 1. This is point 1. This is within introduction. Within introduction, we are still on the major heading is introduction. This was the question which we are going to find the solution to. And if you scroll down to your readings, this is the first point. The state of material well-being of a nation is captured quite accurately in its per capita gross national product. Now, students by now should know the definition of gross national product. So gross national product is the per head value of the final goods and services produced by the people of a country over a given year. When I say per head value, it means the total output divided by the total population. You should know by now what is per capita. Per capita is nothing but the total output divided or the total product divided by the total population. So when I talk about the per head terms, in per head terms, what's the value of final goods and services produced by the people of a country, or I can, to be more accurate, I can say the residents of a country over a given year. This is nothing but the per capita gross national product. So this is point number 1. Then you can scroll downwards. Within point 1, we continue. It is perhaps universally accepted that development is not just about income, although income has a great deal to do with it. Now, as students of development economics, we need to understand that income is a monetary measure. And although income plays a crucial role in understanding whether the economy is developed or not, it is, however, not the only measure to track development. Development, when I talk about development of an economy, it is also the removal of poverty and undernutrition. It is an increase in the life expectancy, average number of years for which a person is expected to live. It is access to good sanitation facilities, clean drinking water, health services, it is also the reduction of infant mortality, which captures the average, which captures the number of deaths of infants. Okay, below 1 year. It is increased to access. It is increased access to knowledge and schooling and literacy in particular. So what is this whole point telling us? Income is not the only parameter through which you can evaluate development. Development also talks about various other social indicators, how the social indicators are performing. If your income is very high, but there is massive poverty in your economy, there is very low life expectancy, there is poor sanitation, there is no access to clean drinking water, which leads to waterborne diseases, no good health services, very high infant mortality rates, okay, no access to, or I can say very less access to knowledge, especially higher levels of education, and poor literacy. Now, even though an economy is performing very well in terms of the monetary measures like income or per capita GNP, but if the social indicators are performing poorly, we cannot say that that economy is developed. And guys, on the other hand, the reverse also is important. If I say that the economy's social indicators are very good, but income is very low, then also the economy is not said to be developed. Development demands good performance on income grounds also, per capita GNP grounds also, and social indicator grounds also. We cannot compromise on one and say that the country is said to be developed. Okay, so this was the first point. If you scroll down, you can see the second point, which starts from this paragraph. It is really a belief about the world, which is that the universal features of economic development, are health, life expectancy, literacy, and so on, follow in some natural way from the growth of per capita GNP. Now paragraph 2 is telling us that the social indicators like health, life expectancy, literacy, and the per capita GNP, they are somewhat interlinked. An economy whose per capita GNP is very high will have good health facilities, higher life expectancies, good literacy rates, and so on. And good health, higher life expectancy, and good literacy rates will further increase the GNP. So point 2 is telling us that health, life expectancy, literacy, and per capita GNP are like reinforcing each other. The social indicators and the monetary indicators are reinforcing each other. I can write the social indicators and monetary indicators. Social indicators and monetary indicators are reinforcing each other. Okay, this is what paragraph 2 is telling us primarily. Perhaps with the passage of time, implicit here is a belief in the power of aggregate economic forces to positively affect every other socio-economic outcome that you want to associate with development. It's the same thing, just more elaborated. So this outlook may be contrasted with the view that a correlation between GNP and other desired features is not automatic. In many such cases, the connection may not be present at all. So now this becomes an empirical question that whether the correlation between GNP and these social indicators will be found in every economy. In every economy, do we expect higher GNP to enforce better health, higher life expectancy, and higher literacy, or not? So according to this view, per capita GNP fails as an adequate overall measure and must be supplemented by other indicators directly. Okay, so the point to understand here is that although we would expect per capita GNP and social indicators to be reinforcing each other, but the correlation between them may not be automatic. In many countries, empirically, it has been found that although the countries have very high GNP, but they have very poor life expectancy rates, poor health, poor literacy rates, and so on. So we can't necessarily say whether per capita GNP will have a positive correlation with health, life expectancy, and literacy. the correlation might fail in some of the economies, and hence we can conclude that per capita GNP is not the only overall measure. You also need to focus on other indicators as well. This was what point number 2 was telling us. Okay, and now if I come to the measurement issues, which is the last topic I plan to take forward in this particular lecture. So now measurement issues are further going to talk about per capita incomes and comparison of economies. So first of all, this is the introductory paragraph, which all students are going to mark. This is the introductory paragraph, which talks about measurement issues. So you will only mark what I have marked, and then you can start learning it up and understanding it. So low per capita incomes are an important feature of economic underdevelopment. We cannot deny that an economy which is underdeveloped obviously has lower per capita incomes. Perhaps the most important feature, and there is little doubt that the distribution of income across the world's nations is extraordinarily skewed. We have also done this in our lectures on characteristics of development, a very short introduction by Partha Das Gupta. In that reading, we had learned that the distribution of income across the world's nations is quite skewed. You have the richer nations on one side, you have the poorer nations on completely the opposite side of the globe. That means I can say, not the globe, I can say that the richer and the poorer nations are quite scattered. And then you have a thin line of middle income nations between the richer and the poorer nations. So to facilitate comparison, each country's income is converted into a common currency. Typically, they follow the US dollars for converting every currency into US dollar. Okay, and divided by that country's population to arrive at a measure of per capita income. We know how to calculate per capita income now. Per capita income of a given country is nothing but that country's income divided by that country's population. This conversion scheme is called the exchange rate method because it uses the rates of exchange between the local and the common currencies to express incomes in a common unit. We know how to calculate the exchange rates now. So the World Development Report contains estimates of GNP per capita by country, and all of these are in terms of dollars. That means every country's currency is converted to dollars. And then you divide the income of that country by the population of that country, which gives you that country's per capita GNP. Very simple. So according to the World Development Report, students can mark this. It contains such estimates of GNP per capita by country. By this yardstick, the world produced 24 trillion of the output in 1993. This was the estimated total output produced by the world. About 20% of this output came from low and middle income nations, whereas 80% of this output was produced by richer nations, or I can say wealthier nations. So it shows the amount of polarization. That's the correct word we use, polarization. Polarization means that you have the richer nations completely dominating on one side, followed by a small share of the poorer and the middle income nations. 24 trillion is a very big figure, guys, and out of 24 trillion, only 20% of it is served by the low and the middle income nation. That means 80% of the world's output is supplied by richer nations in terms of GNP, per capita GNP. So it's a pity. And when we see that these countries house 85% of the, and the even more shocking thing is that low and middle income nations, which provide 20% of the world's output, have 85% of the world's population. This is even more of a disaster. It's like saying that low and middle income nations provide a very tiny share of the cake, but there are too many people in those economies who want to eat that cake. In other words, the rich, the poor and the middle income nations contribute a very small share of the world's output, but they have too large population. 85% of the world's population lives in the low and the middle income nations. Switzerland, which is the world's richest country under the system of measurement, enjoys a per capita income of 400 times that of Tanzania, the world's poorest. Look at the amount of polarization. Or I can also say disparity. In Switzerland, the per capita income is 400 times that of the per capita income in Tanzania. So by looking at that, we can see that how much polarized the world is in when it comes to development. Economies which contribute too much to the world's output have too less population who wants to eat the cake. On the other hand, economies which contribute too less to the world's output have too much people who want to eat the cake. So this captures the amount of polarization. So this was the introductory paragraph. Okay. And then in the next lecture, we are going to see the reasons for the large disparities in the per capita income between the countries. So the next lecture is going to be a very important lecture where we are going to start from this particular topic, which will give us the valid reasons why such polarization exists. Okay. So I hope all students have enjoyed this lecture. This was only an introductory lecture where the objective was to introduce all students to the Debraj reading for chapter 2. So I hope all students have enjoyed this lecture. Any doubt, you can unmute your mic and ask or call up, or you can mail me your doubts at divineschoolof economics@gmail.com. This is where I stop in this lecture.